Good morning, everybody. Storytelling and play have the same DNA. To illustrate this, I would like to play a little game with you. You've all found this yellow ball in your seats this morning. Please take it in your hand. It's maybe underneath your jackets. There are two in the front. So I'm going to throw my ball now to one of you. Then please catch it. And then as a response, please simultaneously throw all your balls back to me. I'll try to catch them all, okay? Okay, who wants to catch it? Okay. Yes. Yes. Two. Fantastic. So and this is what is at the core of storytelling and play. Action versus reaction. But why do we love to play? We play under, most of the time, safe circumstances to learn patterns that we then later on can apply to reality. This is what cognitive psychology teaches us. And playing is, most of the time, about achieving a specific goal. And the one emotion that keeps us going, like a neurochemical reward, you could call fun. And the game theorist and game designer Ralph Koster came up with this catchy quote: "Fun is just another word for learning." So playing trains our physical, our mental, our emotional, and our social faculties. And as all these faculties are connected to our imagination, you could also say that games train our imagination. I would like to do a little experiment with you now. Please, all of you, close your eyes. Now, imagine you would write your signature, would sign a contract with your writing hand. Please keep your eyes closed. And now imagine you would do the same, but with your non-writing hand. Okay, you can open up your eyes. So what have you experienced?
It's hard.
Was harder? With the non-writing hand was harder? Why was it harder?
You don't do it, so it's hard to imagine.
Yes, it's so hard to imagine, all the sequences of the movement. And cognitive psychology discovered that we can move our body just as fast and as precisely through time and space as we can imagine the movement before. So, games train our imagination. And the same is true for stories. Stories also train our imagination and therefore our mental, emotional, and social faculties. The cognitive psychologist Keith Otley came up with this wonderful metaphor of a good story being like a flight simulator for our minds. So the storyteller takes us to a place with our imagination where we learn something without having to be there physically, but it actually really trains us. Imagine, for example, if you listen to a great story, a conference talk, for example, and you can then later apply this to your own reality. And we love to play. As children, we love to play, and we love to hear stories. At the age of 2, we are able to process information that comes in the form of a story very, very good. We understand the context and the information much better than pure analytic data, and we're able to pass it on in the form of a story to our friends and to our family. And all these stories have one thing in common. They're all like container boxes for survival strategies. What could be the survival strategy of Hansel and Gretel, for example? Any ideas? Leave the trail or never leave the trail? Okay, yeah, okay. So you make sure if you go into the woods, make sure that you find your way out. Or stick together. Or don't trust a nice surface. Or if you want to survive, sometimes you have to kill. This is what we learn. It sounds really harsh, but these are the stories that we tell our kids if we tucker them to bed. And of course, you have to see the historical context. This story has been collected by the Brothers Grimm and written down 200 years ago. And of course, the time then was much harder than it is today. It was really literally about surviving, finding food or having dry clothes or warm houses that bring you over the winter time. Nowadays, if we speak about survival, then I mean this more in a metaphorical way, but still it is survival. Surviving in the digital age, for example, or surviving in a highly competitive business environment. And there's one example that I brought for you this morning by a speaker. He's an inspirational speaker who is really well known all over the world. His name is Louis Pugh. He's an extreme swimmer, and he loves to swim icy lakes. What a nice hobby. And he makes nice learnings doing that. And maybe you find the one survival strategy that is underlying this one example.
Last year when I was here, I was speaking to you about a swim which I did across the North Pole. And while that swim took place 3 years ago, I can remember it as if it was yesterday. I remember standing on the edge of the ice, about to dive into the water, and thinking to myself, I have never ever seen any place on this earth which is just so frightening. The water is completely black. The water is minus 1.7 degrees centigrade or 29 degrees Fahrenheit. It's flipping freezing in that water. And then a thought came across my mind. If things go pear-shaped on this swim, how long will it take for my frozen body to sink the 4.5 kilometers to the bottom of the ocean? And then I said to myself, I've just got to get this thought out of my mind as quickly as possible. And the only way I can dive into that freezing cold water and swim a kilometer is by listening to my iPod and really revving myself up, listening to everything from beautiful opera all the way across to Puff Daddy, and then committing myself 100%. There is nothing more powerful than a made-up mind. And then walking up to the edge of the ice and just diving into the water.
There's nothing more powerful than a made-up mind. Of course, Louis Pugh has learned this under really extreme conditions. But the great and inspiring moment about this is that we can then implement this into our everyday lives, into every situation. We feel inspired in these moments, listening to these talks or reading great novels, because our brain gives us a nice dose of dopamine every time that it identifies an information that is crucial to our survival. So you could also say that inspiration is just another word for learning. And we are all natural-born storytellers. It's not like a magical tool that you have to find. It's something that everybody has. And once you've understood the underlying principles of good stories, you can easily find these stories popping up in your lives as well. Let me give you one example from my life. Just a year ago, I've been to the skate parcours here in Mitte with my two kids, Marie-Louise and Charlotte. They're both 5 years old and they love skateboarding. And we've been to this parcours, and there was a group of boys aged maybe 10 to 12, 8 boys, and they were doing these fantastic tricks, jumping above the obstacles with their skateboards and making flips and flops and whatever. And it was really fantastic to see what they did, though I had the feeling, whoa, they go really high risk. And there was one boy that was really outrageously courageous. And he was jumping above the obstacle, and then he smashed on earth. And I had the feeling, though I didn't know the kid, that I need to help him. So I ran to him and I said, "Kann ich dir helfen?" And the boys that surrounded him said, "He doesn't understand you, he's American." So I said, "Okay, can I help you?" And he said, no, that's all right, thank you. Learn to fall, fall to learn. maximum 12 years old. It became my motto. Learn to fall, fall to learn. What a nice way to deal with mistakes and failure. And then I thought, no, I really understood the Americans much, much better. They kind of soaked this in. Really interesting. So, and then a good story is always about an action, a reaction, and then a learning. Something that you learn from the reaction that you implement into the next action. And this is really at the core of playing and of the core of storytelling. So if you want to tell a great story, you always have to talk about the obstacles. So there is one brand, the most valuable brand on earth, which implemented storytelling into its core, into its brand core. You all know them, and I guess most of you have products from them. Here's an example from Apple.
Everything we've learned has come down to this. The next generation of MacBooks.
So what do you feel when you see this ad? What goes through your head? Nothing? Okay, I can tell you what happened with me. When I saw this, I had the feeling, oh, if everything they've learned has come down to this product, I really want to have this product. Because all the other products that Apple developed so far came to my head and into my emotions. And I thought, if this is really the crystallization of their knowledge, this is awesome, I want to have it. And look, I have it. So I'm like an Apple fanboy in this case. The screenwriter Frank Daniel, who lived in the 20th century, came up with this quote, what for him makes a good story. Somebody wants something badly and is having difficulty getting it. Who of you knows this? All of you? Please, 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 give me a hand. Okay, so you can see we're all natural-born storytellers. Everybody has these situations. You just have to find them and then tell them and allow yourself to talk about the challenges as well. And if you want to ever become a politician, for example, storytelling is a great way to win majorities. Let me give you one example from the master storyteller from the United States, the President of the United States of America, Barack Obama.
Well, we did not come here just to clean up crises. We came here to build a future. So tonight, I return to speak to all of you about an issue that is central to that future, and that is the issue of healthcare. I am not the first president to take up this cause, but I am determined to be the last.
I'm not the first president to take up this cause, but I'm determined to be the last. When I heard this sentence the first time, and he was speaking in front of the Congress here in 2009, I thought, how does this man come across with this quote? How does he do that? And there's a lot of strong storytelling approach in here. And what he's doing is quite smart. He's reframing the situation, saying that we didn't come here to clean up crisis. Maybe this is what you thought. We came here to build the future. Of course. And in this future, my issue is central in that future. And I'm not the first to want to overcome this challenge, but I'm determined to be the last. So he's kind of putting the obstacle into the future and then helps us to identify with him. And at least with me, he made it. I had the feeling that, yeah, if someone can make this, it has to be Barack Obama. Who else? Such a cool guy. So you can see that stories are all about overcoming obstacles, and they provide learning experiences in an emotional way. And games also are all about overcoming obstacles, and then also are about providing emotional learning experiences. So as you can see, storytelling and play have a lot in common. We if we use storytelling and if we use play, can understand our own topics and the themes and the events that happen around us in a much more rich way and maybe a much more meaningful way. And therefore, we can contribute better to society if we communicate our ideas and what drives us and our values. But I think what is most crucial about both activities is that they help us to find new strategies to deal with failure. And I know for you, most of you are creative people from the maybe design industry, for example. You know that failure is really important. But we as a society still are not really happy and not really feeling comfortable with dealing with failure. But I think it's important for us to find a different way to deal with that, because this fear of making failure is something that holds us back from our most valuable resource that we have as creatives and as human beings. And this is our imagination. Thank you very much.